Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. To my left is, as usual, is my host, Felipe Amorim. How's it going, man?
We're good, man. Hello, everyone.
It's good, yeah. We're sat here again after a gig, the morning after. It's coffees today, not beer, unfortunately.
Coffee day today.
It was a late one last night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So instead of the ceremonial cracking of the beer, we'll do a clink of the coffee cups. So cheers, let's get the episode
quiet,
started.
isn't it?
It is.
That doesn't sound very rock and roll.
But that reflects the post-gig day, the morning waking up, and he's got another gig later, not with me, with another band. So you're on the coffee.
Yeah,
listen, he's rock and roll through and through. He said, "Laz, give me 4 beers." I said, "Felipe, you got a gig later on, mate, and it's 9:30 in the morning."
Yeah. Coffee is good for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, excellent. Well, today's episode is going to feature discussions and, well, that's it really, isn't it? Discussions about the band Guns N' Roses. Would you like to kick off about Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, what can we say about that? Everything has been said about them. No.
Yeah, in that 1 minute 20, we did it all.
I think they are so essential to rock and roll history, even if you don't like them. Everyone knows about Guns N' Roses. Everyone knows about their stories.
Everyone knows one song.
One song at least, and all the crazy stuff they did, etc. So I think they were important because I think the first album was released in 1987. You correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right. Yeah, Appetite for Destruction.
Appetite for Destruction, and it was the best-selling album best-selling debut album of all times by that point. So
and ultimately it is their most famous album, isn't it?
It is still, yes, I think it is. Well, you can argue that Use Your Illusion is another really famous one. So I think those two, or three, because Use Your Illusion is a double album. But yeah, so by the time they came about, how many bands were that rock and roll? To be honest,
well, that's interesting
the end of the 80s.
They formed in the mid 80s, but the first album, like you said, was 87. And the things I was finding out when I was doing my research is that rock and roll had become really stagnant in the early 80s. You have to think, I look at things like the death of John Bonham.
Yeah.
And although it's just one band member, you have to think, what kind of impact does that have on a genre of music when the gods of rock and roll, Led Zeppelin, the drummer dies? That's a big thing. And I'm not saying just Bonham dying is the reason for rock and roll becoming a bit boring in the 80s, but
John Lennon
there was no more Zeppelin.
John Lennon died.
Yeah, exactly. So the Beatles split up.
Exactly. Some of those bands, they were retiring. Some of the the classic rock bands were kind of ending their careers. And loads of rock bands were becoming pop bands, changing the style, stuff like that.
Yeah, Queen.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. You guys
Genesis,
remember. You guys remember episode 2? We talked about Queen and how they moved with the times. And although you could consider them a hard rock band in the 70s, in the 80s they were almost definitely a pop rock band.
Yeah.
But they did what they had to do to stay with their time, pay their rent. They were proper musicians.
And then you have Genesis went through the same sort of thing, from being a progressive rock band in the 70s to be a pop band in the 80s.
Yeah.
So that happened to loads of bands. So rock was becoming pop, or
can I add something else to what rock was becoming? You have to remember, in the early 80s, that's when 2 things occurred: thrash metal. So Metallica coming out in, I think it's like 82, Metallica formed, and the new wave of British heavy metal. So Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, Motorhead, these bands coming through. So rock, like Felipe said, was going in different directions. You had the bands who just wanted to keep their successes becoming a bit poppier. And then you had, I wouldn't say the bands changing their direction, but bands were changing direction and becoming heavier. Like I said, the new wave of British heavy metal that was also occurring.
Yeah, so as I say, you had heavy metal and you had pop.
Yes.
But hard rock, because you can call them a hard rock band, and you didn't have many of those around. No. And also, you got to consider that they look like rock heroes. They look like the Rolling Stones. They look like Aerosmith. There's loads of Aerosmith elements to their music. I'll dare to say that. They had the look and they had the sound of classic hard rock.
Yeah.
In the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. So that's really important, I guess, for the rock industry to have a best-selling album like Appetite for Destruction, and a solid touring band like Guns N' Roses, like representing heavy rock or hard rock at that time, I think was really important. And the fact that they were so popular all around the world, in Japan and in Europe, and they were kind of carrying the flag of rock and roll, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's
that
true.
was really important.
So the members of Guns N' Roses, they were Axl Rose was on vocals, Slash was on guitar or lead guitar.
So
Izzy, say again, Soul, that's his name, isn't it? Yeah,
that's Slash.
He was born in London.
He was born in the UK. I don't know exactly
but
where.
He's
but
American.
Well, yeah, I think he lived most of his life in America.
Yeah.
He moved to America very, very young. I don't know what. What age.
So that's Axl on vocals, Slash, Saul Hudson on lead guitar. It's Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar, Duff McKagan on bass, and Steven Adler was the first drummer. But why don't you talk to us a bit about their second drummer, Matt Sorum, because
Matt Sorum was great. Just one thing before that, as they had another lineup before the lineup that recorded the album, before they actually signed with the label. They had other band members, and you know, Slash wasn't part of the original lineup. So
can you imagine?
Yeah. So Axl Rose is effectively the only guy who has been in Guns N' Roses since the beginning. It is his project.
We'll come on
so
to
when
that
people,
later.
when people criticize that, it is his project.
No, it is.
So you said Matt Sorum. So obviously that's the other thing about them. They had many lineup changes.
Yeah.
I think it's something around 17 musicians that played in the band or something like that.
And the only constant was Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've changed a lot, but you can clearly associate Duff and Slash as part of the image of the band. I think So when they now touring with Axl, Duff, and Slash, you can see, that's Guns N' Roses. You know, I think it does please the fans quite a lot. But how do you keep a band going with all those lineup changes? So you need kind of a how can I put it? A solid concept behind it, and obviously you need a strong voice to lead them. And Axl Rose's voice is so easy to recognize. That's the other element about them. Yeah. You hear his voice, like, oh, that's Axl.
Yeah, straight away.
And it's distorted, aggressive rock and roll vocal style, and he's not clean. You know, when he's singing, it's aggressive. So, and I think that's one of the main characteristics of their music is Axl's voice. And you said something about his voice, like being.
The higher and lower things.
Yeah,
we were chatting about this yesterday on the way back home from the gig. Excuse me. For those of you who've watched the, I don't know when this is coming out, but for those of you who have listened to the Hendrix episode, we won't do the same. I'm feeling a bit better.
I'm not going to beep all the coughs.
I think this is going to come out before the Hendrix episode. So wait till you hear my coughs in the Hendrix episode. We do something with that. But no, Axl's voice. I wouldn't consider myself a Guns N' Roses fan by any means. Like I love a lot of their songs. I think, Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, Civil War, all their hits, if you like. I think they're really good. But one thing I noticed when I was analysing how much I like Guns N' Roses was that the songs that mattered to me, the songs that I enjoyed, were the ones where Axl did his high register voice. Yeah, I don't need no civil war. And I don't really
sound just like him.
Yeah, with a cold. Yeah, this is Axl. Well, I could be an impersonator. But the way it's sweet child, that when he does that high register voice, and I don't really enjoy the songs where he sings in his low.
But that's the
register.
thing. But that's the thing. The contrast between the low and high is what makes his voice special. It has such a huge
that's
vocal range,
fair.
Because if he was singing on the high pitch all the time, it gets annoying sometimes. And it's like he does. Also, you have that contrast in that songs like Civil War starts very quiet and builds up.
And when he gets to the high part of Civil War, it has more of an impact.
And you see how the band follows that. You have all those like clean guitar sounds. And it's low intros and it builds up and it's like a punch in your face when it gets to the chorus. So they do that in a lot of songs.
But then for people like me, that just makes the song... His high voice is so good and I love hearing it that I will sit through a verse of his not high voice to get to that chorus.
Yeah.
Which I know it sounds like really pedantic, sounds like I'm being really picky, but in the end you like what you like, and I don't like his low voice. But, as I just said, I would listen to the low voice in order to hear him belt that final chorus in his high voice.
It's a build-up, isn't it? That's the thing. And I believe that...
A journey. Sorry to interrupt. A journey. A song is a journey.
Yeah.
And you've got to be with them the whole way through.
And how well do the musicians work around that? So if you listen to Duff's bass sound, is very characteristic as well. You know, the way he plays the bass, and also Slash's guitar playing. Of course, everyone knows the guitar solos. Everyone can kind of sing the guitar solos.
Yeah, that's very true.
They are part of the music. Slash once said in an interview he didn't want solos to be just like him showing off. He wanted the solo to be part of the composition. So it's just like it's like a violin melody in an orchestra. You know, that's what it is.
But that's interesting. No, you're absolutely right, because that's always how I view solos. I mean, different people and different musicians will view solos differently. For example, Frank Zappa said that the purpose of his solos is to give the audience members something different every night. So he improvised solos every night, and he said he hates all the solos that he's put on an album because he knows he could do it better eventually, or he would come up with... If he's recorded a solo on a song and they go and gig that song 2 weeks later, he'll improvise a solo better than what he put on the record. Yeah. So Zappa didn't like solos being organised and having a direction, but Slash does. Yeah. And I think that's common with rock and roll. You know, you could sing Jimmy Page solos.
Well, Jimmy Page, he did improvise some of the solos in the studio as well. He would try loads of takes until find one, but it would be an improvised take sometimes. Whilst Slash is a guy who writes the solos.
Is that true?
It's a composition. Yeah. What is there is like when he plays them live, like Sweet Child of Mine, you can play that solo note by note. I think it should be played note by note if you play in a tribute band or a covers band. You want to do that kind of music.
Do you know? Can I say something that really winds me up? I was listening to the radio the other day. Oh my goodness! And it was Radio 2, BBC. Hang your heads in shame. The guy, I don't know who was on. He said, "Okay, and now we got a few Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine." And I looked at the clock. It was about 10:30. And then at about 10:33. They cut the solo in half, and as the solo's coming to an end, the guy starts talking over it and goes, "Yes, here we are. That's Guns N' Roses, Axl and Slash doing their thing." He lets the solo go on for 10 more seconds, then he comes in again. "Next up, we got for you some this, that, and the other." I thought, fucking hell, just leave it. Like, not only has he spoken over the solo, but do you know, this is what I feel is not the difference, but something that a stark contrast between. I don't want to generalise and say people who listen to the radio and people who listen to the music.
Well, you can.
But we were left. I was, and I'm sure other people were left disappointed because, like you said, I know the solo of "Sweet Child of Mine," note for note. I can sing it. So when I hear the song, I want to hear it.
Man, when November Rain came out, there was a radio edit without the guitar solo. It simply chopped the whole guitar solo. It's like what you doing? But see how important it is. So,
it's like cutting a verse from a Queen song. It's like cutting a verse of Freddie. Yeah. How dare you cut?
Yeah, we don't need those lyrics. Just remove that part. So that what I want to say about this is like although. Some people say Slash is overrated, this and that, because they analyze it under a technical point of view. Think about him as a musician, as a composer, okay? Because that's what he is. He's sometimes not in charge of writing the song, the lyrics and the melody, but his guitar parts are so essential to the songs that you can't imagine them without the guitar. So you're like, right. Well, as we just said, if you cut the guitar solo, you get really annoyed. Like, I want to hear the guitar solo. I want to hear it. And sometimes you can play really long solos, and it, as you said, it takes you on a journey. Yeah, you want to be there.
But that's what it is to be a band: is to appreciate every instrument in the band and know that every instrument in the band is doing its job.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So you talked about the fact that they changed lineups. They had other people in the band, but I think Duff and Slash are almost as important
as Axl.
As Axl.
And I think that's interesting that you say that about a bass player, because I can listen. I fully, I think Duff's a great bass player, but of all the instruments that I'd expect people to say what you just said, I think in terms of what's priorities, vocals first, then lead
Yeah.
guitar, then I'd imagine drums.
Of course, yeah.
But you
drums
mentioned-
on top of everything.
No, but you
of
know what I
course.
mean? As in, it's funny that you mentioned a bass player, because even you've got to think about things like, the rock music and the way that it was mixed. I mean, even up until today, the bass sits very low in the mix.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is it's very interesting that you've chosen a bass player who plays very well, but in a busy band,
Yeah.
as an integral part of Guns N' Roses.
I think it is.
Yeah,
And
no, I agree.
If
It's
you
just
look, if you
interesting.
look at any of their live performances, also he does some lead vocals as well. But if you look at their live performances, he's part of the image of the band.
Absolutely,
He's so
yeah.
rock and roll. Probably the most rock and roll guy in the band, And you got to have him.
Well, talking of Sweet Child of Mine, that was actually the first single that bred the success for Guns N' Roses to come.
And it has such a simple video, isn't it? It's just them
It
playing.
is, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
nothing. It's all about the music. How good is that?
Exactly. Well, after that song, so 1 year after that song was released, they released the album Appetite for Destruction, which it did really well. And it's a great album.
It's
isn't
mind
it?
blowing. I mean, for the time, all those songs, really, like I said, it's a punch in your face.
No,
It's really
yeah.
strong, loud rock and roll,
Yeah.
distorted guitars, and they had the proper attitude. Heavy drinkers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They were like,
Let's talk about their attitude.
Yeah.
I'll just say quickly, the Appetite for Destruction went to number one straight away, and it is the. I was reading. Well, hold on. It's the. Wait, let me check my notes. It's the 7th highest-selling album of all time in the USA.
that's mental. Isn't
That's
it?
crazy, though.
That's crazy.
I think
for rock
you think about
bands
Dark
in
Side of the
early
Moon.
80s.
Yeah, you're talking about Think about when we talked about Dark Side of the Moon and how many that sold around the world.
Well, do you
Put
know
it
how
in
many?
perspective to think Appetite for Destruction is the 7th highest-selling album in the USA.
And overall, Guns N' Roses have sold over 100 million albums.
Yeah.
Like all their albums all over the world. So like that is insane. 45 million in the US alone.
That's half of their sales.
Yes, yeah.
That's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
They're
So
a very American band, weren't they?
they were because they have, you can hear the influence of Rolling Stones and other stuff. But I think there's even a bit of Ozzy Osbourne in there somewhere in their music.
I think there's a bit of country as well. Do you hear it? I don't
interesting.
mean country. I'm trying to think of. I'm thinking Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah,
That kind of
Southern,
country rock.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Southern blues. Country
Yeah, there is
rock
a bit of
thing.
that as well, for
Sleazy,
sure.
gritty, dark.
Yeah, very American as
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and obviously it's a bigger market than anywhere else in the world for
Yeah.
rock. But the numbers are for anyone who considers to think that they are not that important for rock and roll. Just think again, because in the late 80s and 90s, for a band to sell 100 million albums.
In a chart that is
yeah.
dominated by pop music,
Yeah.
that we said those rock bands of the 70s that were adjusting, they went and wrote pop. The 80s was full of experimental electronic music,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
And
the charts were busy with it. So for Guns N' Roses to stand out,
That is a really, really strong point there, because they were not messing about, were they? It's just like guitar, bass, drums, vocals. It took a while for them to add a keyboard player.
that's the embodiment of rock and roll,
Yeah.
those instruments. And so like Felipe said, you have to commend Guns N' Roses for... I mean, I don't know if they actually said this, but you kind of get the impression they're like, guys, rock and roll's dying. We need to do something about it, and they did.
And they were not afraid to change and try different things. After Appetite, they came up with Lies? That's the second album.
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah.
And you have Patience, which is just this love ballad with no drums, just acoustic guitars. A fantastic video for the time, and again another hit.
Yeah,
and I think that was I think the importance of that song is it reached out to literally everyone, like, because it's not a rock song, it's not heavy.
Yeah.
So they proved they could do a kind of a pop ballad, let's put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a nice solo by Slash. Even with the acoustic setup, he managed to come up with a really remarkable solo. And all their elements are there somehow, even in an acoustic song. And you have Axl like shouting at the end and singing a stronger vocal line at the end.
It's interesting you said about, because something that Guns N' Roses have been attributed with is repopularizing the power ballad.
Yeah.
Which they did so. I mean, think you could even
Don't
consider,
Cry.
yeah. But I'd say even to an extent, you could call Civil War a power ballad.
Yeah.
November Rain as well.
Rain.
But at a time where those ballads, in an era where they'd gone, Guns N' Roses bring them back.
Yeah, and it reminds me.
Sorry, but making them fresh, not copy and pasting from the end of the 70s.
No, not at all. Yeah,
making it their own.
It's something that Scorpions did really well, like a heavy band playing love ballads in
Any
really
song
high.
we can put in the playlist of Scorpions?
Still Loving You.
Okay,
cool. It's
that'll be available for you to hear in the playlist, guys, which should be at the bottom of the show notes. Click the link and you'll be taken straight to the Spotify playlist of all the songs we mentioned in this episode.
The reason why I'm mentioning this is because Scorpions did that really well. Whitesnake, for instance, Here I Go Again, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those bands, they were heavy bands that could write really, really good ballads, and anyone can listen to that stuff. So those songs can play in the radio.
I was going to ask you, what's the difference for you between those bands, between your Scorpions, your Def Leppard, your Whitesnake, and your Guns N' Roses? Because interestingly, again, I don't know where this is. What we do, just a little quick break, is we record episodes and we try and get as many as we can done when we have time. So we got a couple of hours this morning to record. So we don't do these in order. Yeah. So we might do this episode, and although we recorded an episode a week ago, this one might be released before the other one. So I don't know which order that's going to be in, but eventually, or it's already there, we do an episode about classic rock with our guest and our friend Johnny Della, and I clump all of those bands when we talk about what we think classic rock is. And for me, all those bands I just said, Whitesnake, Scorpions, Journey, Def Leppard, and Guns N' Roses, I consider them to be the heart of what classic rock means. So for you, not what sets them apart, but what are the differences between Journey, Whitesnake, Def Leppard, etc., and Guns N' Roses? Well, or is there a difference?
There is, yeah, of course. I think you can tell that Guns N' Roses are not from the same era than those bands. But it's a tough question, because I think what makes them special is the things we're talking about. The guitar solos, Axl's voice, like really remarkable vocal style.
Yeah.
And they do have elements of classic rock, but they were not, doing that in the 70s. So they have loads of elements from the 70s, but they were doing that in 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Which I think it's what sets them apart from the other guys. They do remind me a lot of Aerosmith, in many ways. But it's tough, man. It's not a simple question. But I think they can be considered classic rock now, because for me, classic is anything that stands the test of time, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've survived all those years, and what you've done is still relevant for the industry and for the fans. And whatever they decide to do is going to sell millions.
Yeah,
literally,
exactly,
whatever they do is going to sell millions. So that's how strong the brand Guns N' Roses is, how important for the rock and roll industry they are.
Something interesting that I feel like I identified is that, again, I know we're saying that those bands I mentioned, they started a lot earlier than Guns N' Roses, but there is a huge difference. Actually, I can't think of anyone, rock and roll or not, that had the same attitude as Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Because if you remember back to episode 1, we were talking that rock and roll, we consider it, we came away saying rock and roll is musical freedom, but at the same time, it's an attitude, it's a culture, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
And Guns N' Roses, probably of all rock bands I can think of, are one of the most rock and roll bands in terms of attitude.
Yeah.
They did everything wrong in terms of that they were not glorifying drugs, but they were openly smoking and taking stuff. They were openly getting drunk. They were openly misogynistic and sexist. Their videos with women in next to nothing.
Which at the time was more like commonplace than it is now. You're having models in video clips and stuff like that. It was more like
the image of them.
Yeah. But the fact that they were like the rock gods and the girls were there, surrounding them, wanting to be around them. That's proper, rock and roll for that time, I would say.
There's a song called "One in a Million," which Axl Rose has, even today, comes under heavy fire for writing because I don't know the reason of the song. I think he was pissed off because something like a rival band did something, or an ex-girlfriend cheated on him or something, and he writes this song in which he insults every I'm trying to think of the way to categorize it. Everybody. He uses racial slurs. He uses homophobic language.
Yeah.
He uses just insults, swear words. That's rock and roll, but to quite a dark extent, because he got so heavily criticised for it. You can't play that song on the radio.
No,
I've read that even fans skip it on the album because it's not a nice song to listen to.
It's not something you want to listen to.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, those, that kind of attitude exists. There's people out there who would say those things.
Yeah.
And someone turned that into music.
Well, it's an expression of an art form.
It's almost like saying you cannot pretend that this kind of thought doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm going to shout it to your face.
Yeah.
If he intended to say that as a way to show that this is a character, or that I've created saying those things, that's obviously more acceptable than saying, "Oh, this is what I think."
That's true.
But in any case, so regardless, I don't know Axl Rose. I can't speak for him.
Yeah.
So in any case, I would say that it's a reality. It's a reality. People think like that.
Yeah.
Some people think like that. It's in the music, and we cannot pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But the other song he did, which I think is the same line, is "Get in the Ring" from.
Get in the Ring.
Yes, which is him it's like calling for a fight, really.
Oh,
and
really?
It's literally mentioning names of journalists and people who criticized him.
Oh, wow.
So it's like,
but is that not rock and roll?
That is.
Queen did it in 1975 with Death on Two Legs, where they were slaying the record label for trying to take too much money. That's a consistent thing of rock and roll, calling out people and saying, "I don't like you."
Yeah, exactly. So they had that. They were not afraid of being criticized by that kind of stuff. But also, I think they knew they would be remembered by the power ballads and the guitar solos, and there's loads of swearing in the words as well. They were not afraid of doing those things. Lots of people dislike Axl because of his attitude, and there's, again, to kind of sum up the whole attitude thing we're talking about. I read this interview with Matt Sorum, who joined them in 1990 or 91 for User Illusion, and then staying in the band for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So Matt Sorum said that Axl would be late for gigs on purpose. He was there, but he wouldn't turn up.
Really?
Maybe stay in the green room or stay in a hotel. He wouldn't turn up, and he would delay the start of the show on purpose in order to make the audience and the band members angry.
That's really interesting.
And he said, he would do that on purpose. And Matt Sorum was like, at the time, he said he was pissed about it. Like, why are you doing this to us? We're working for you. He was a session guy. So mind you, loads of people who've been in Guns N' Roses, they were not members of the band.
Okay.
Officially, they were hired by Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Right. So Matt Sorum was one of them, and it was like, okay, it's like, I'm working for you, dude. I'm a session guy. I know how to do my job. I'm prepared. I want to play my gig. And where the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And Axl wouldn't turn up. And then he said, looking back, he thought he finally understood now what Axl wanted. He wanted them to be angry, to show that anger in the music. He wanted the performance to be full-on rock and roll.
What I'm going to do right now is just quick. I'm going to introduce a segment because it's relevant. So it's just be different because I'm introducing my own one, but I have to do it now because it's relevant.
There's one?
Yeah, you do it. There you go.
I'm going to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, Laz Unleashed.
Great. So, like I said, it's completely relevant. In this episode's Laz Unleashed, here is what I want to say. I don't care how rock and roll it is. You should never leave fans waiting for the amount of time that Axl leaves the fans waiting. He once didn't turn up for a show in Vancouver, and what you said was meant to happen, happened. They rioted. Do you know that?
Really?
In Vancouver, they rioted.
Wow.
The fans rioted because he didn't turn up.
Good.
Excuse me. They didn't riot. I mean, it's like, no, but this is exact. You said it so perfectly. When you have a crowd of people that are waiting for something that they've paid for, and this is still part of Laz Unleashed. These people have jobs, they've got families, they've got trains waiting to take them home. They've got things, you know. I remember when I went to first gigs when I was like a kid, I had to be back by a certain time, which my mum and dad sort of got into me, because in the end, education is important, and I had to be up and be fresh for school the next day.
But that's not rock and roll.
No, it wasn't like that. But I imagine parents taking their kids to see Guns N' Roses, and I imagine, you know, if the mum takes the son to see Guns N' Roses, and the dad's like, you've got to be back by 11 because he's got school tomorrow. If Axl doesn't turn up till 11:05, then the kid's not getting home till 3 a.m. And I know it's a rock and roll image to turn up late, but I think the fans deserve more. So I'm sorry, Axl, but on Laz Unleashed, I can't. Fans like that owe the fans for their popularity.
Exactly.
It's the 7th highest selling album ever in the US. You owe the fans as much as just turning up on time, Axl.
And every tour they do is going to sell out. We know that. And the thing about that is he wants to, I think, you know, it's just an opinion here. I think what he wants is to feel like he's in power, and he's in charge, he's got power. Because, like, okay, I'm going to decide when the whole thing starts and when the whole thing ends. Yeah. And one thing that Slash said by the end of his time with Guns N' Roses, or the first time he's been to Guns N' Roses, he was a bit upset with the fact that for him the band became a dictatorship. That's what he said. Yeah. It's like Axl would sit there and watch them jamming and wouldn't say a thing, and then he would come up with his own ideas. Oh, this is how I want.
I imagine it'd be like, can you imagine Axl sat in the corner, Slash is playing a riff, and Axl goes, I've just come up with an idea for a riff, and it's the same one Slash is doing. I think that's what a dictator does, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, you know, so the riff goes dun da da dun da da. Slash was like, no, I just did that. No, I just thought of that. That's the new song.
That's the new song. Probably, I think that's so. Apparently, like you know, some of those guys, they just couldn't. You know, stand his attitude. Yeah. That's why.
Do you think that's the response? Do you think that's why the lineup changes was so 17 different members? That's a lot.
Yeah, and also, if you're in a rock band, you want to contribute somehow, and you feel like you're a member of the band for the audience. I guess that's an interesting thing now, because Guns N' Roses has become this massive enterprise. It's a company. It's a business. Yeah. And it's been touring the world for ages. Years. Yeah. And you don't want to stop that, and if you're in charge of it, like Axl Rose is, you just want to keep the business running. So you have the business side of it, which some people don't get it, and you have people working for the business. The musicians are part of it, but as a rock fan, you see the musicians as
all responsible for the music you're hearing on the album.
You want to see a band on stage, everyone playing, interacting, and when you have just one guy in charge, and the other guys are kind of hired by him, which happened with the other lineups, it doesn't feel like a rock band, does it? Didn't
we talk about that with Creedence? Yeah. In episode 4, we did Creedence, and we learned that John Fogerty essentially became the dictator of Creedence, and that didn't last too long, as in Creedence the band, but the hits were there.
Yeah,
the hits kept coming out.
Same thing as Roger Waters with Pink Floyd. Yep. There's always someone who knows they're really creative and they can do stuff, so they take over. So, but it's a fine line, isn't it, from like being
clever and stupid. Clever and stupid. we will always try and get a Spinal Tap reference in.
We've made it today.
Yeah, we did it today.
So it's like to get someone like as clever as Roger Waters or John Fogerty and Axl Rose, get those people to listen to the others and collaborate with them when sometimes they have a clear picture of what they want.
Yeah, it can be hard.
It can be hard. And I think, just to mention, I think for me, the best thing they do, for those of you who don't know Guns N' Roses that well, I recommend Use Your Illusion, the second album, which for me is the best thing they've done.
That's perfect to come on to it now. We'll talk about that now.
They released those two albums at the same time,
Yeah, well, the thing is we're talking about the rock and rollness and the drugs. It was good for the image and it was good for the first album and for the first tours, but it ended up making Steven Adler not be able to play his instrument. So in 1990, they fired Steven Adler for the amount of drugs he was taking. Actually, well, do you know what? Knowing them, it probably wasn't firing for the amount he was taking, but the way that he was playing after taking those drugs.
Exactly.
Loads of bands, you just look at Pink Floyd, the Beatles, they could take a lot of drugs and play their music really well, but for some people, it just doesn't work. So Steven Adler, they fired him. And then a year later, they released Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. So talk to us a bit about those albums. They're really good, important albums, aren't they?
Yes, you have, so that's the first lineup that the public got to know, because when they became famous with that lineup, included Slash and Duff and Steven Adler and Easy on guitar. And now, suddenly they don't have the original drummer. I don't think anyone cared about that anyway.
No.
You know, he wasn't that important in terms of the image of the band and all the stuff. And they got Matt Sorum, which they saw playing live with the Coat. And it was such a great session drummer. He could do the job and he had the look for the band as well. So they got him. And, he literally joined the band in studio to record an epic album.
Wow.
So, not an easy task, isn't it? So
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I just want to say I got something wrong. I said earlier Sweet Child of Mine was their first single. It wasn't. That was the first song that brought them some success. Welcome to the Jungle was their first single. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to get it known that I got it wrong. Yeah. So just correcting myself. Please carry on, man. Yeah, please carry on.
So you got Matt Sorum joining the band, and I think he made a huge difference in that sense, being a professional.
They were jamming in their rehearsal rooms, but they had so much content. That's why Use Your Illusion. It was planned to be one album, right? But they had so much content that it became
double LPs.
No way, really?
It is.
So it's 2
double LPs.
So it's like 4 albums.
Insane. Yeah, it's insane. Release it, but the way they release it as well is think about it. It's so original the way they've done it. Instead of doing one. Like you could do like a 4-part album, whatever that would be called, but they release us 2 different releases with pretty much the same cover with different colors. That in itself is a great marketing strategy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So everyone was talking about, have you seen a new album or albums? Got 2 different covers. The artwork is amazing. I think everything about that release is just perfect. They nailed it.
System of a Down did that in 2005, where they released 2 albums in the same month.
It makes you think if they
Hypnotize
took the idea,
and Mesmerize. Same album cover concept, but different, visual. But yeah, I mean, look, this is what Guns N' Roses have done.
Yeah,
influence. If you've got too much, material from a session, don't hang on to it and say, we'll release it in a year. Just put it out. Yeah. And that's the kind of attitude that they've put forward.
Maybe that's why it took too long for them to release anything else, because they got everything. They released everything at the same time, but
they ran out of songwriting prowess.
They had such an impact. Think about it. So many good songs like "Don't Cry," is that Strange, which is my favorite Guns N' Roses song.
Civil War, Yesterdays.
Yeah,
they do a Heaven's Door. I was just going to say that. The cover.
Good choices of covers. Knock on Heaven's Door and Live and Let Die.
Who does Live and Let Die originally?
Paul McCartney.
With Wings?
Oh, come on, man.
With Wings?
I don't know, probably, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's Paul McCartney. That was James Bond soundtrack.
Oh, okay. That'll be in the playlist, guys.
He's too young. Forgive him. He's too young. So that's Paul McCartney's song.
If I don't know anything, it's good because I've got an excuse.
Laz is one of those people who thinks Live and Let Die is a Guns N' Roses song.
I am until just now.
Yeah. Shocking. Shocking.
I'm young.
We're not going to edit this
He
out.
gives me the excuse. No, of course not.
He's way too young for that.
Excuse me, guys.
Good choice of cover songs. And they totally nailed the whole album. The other guy who joined the band, that's an important thing, Dizzy Reed, the keyboard player, and I think he never left the band. He's still with them.
Oh, really?
And when they went through different lineups after that, he stayed in the band. So he's I
was just going to say about the Use Your Illusion albums, there is a growth. There is a sense of maturity. If you listen to Appetite for Destruction and then the Use Your Illusions, the band has so obviously grown and spread their wings, because if you listen to Appetite for Destruction, as we said, it's your standard 2 guitars, bass, drums, and vocals. That's rock. In Use Your Illusion, they expanded their. I don't want to say them. Let's say they expanded their musicality.
Yeah.
They were using female backing vocalists. They were doing. They had horn sections in their songs.
Yes.
10-minute epics, power ballads, string sections.
Well, so you got strings. You got backing vocals.
Acoustic blues. There's a song on Use Your Illusion 1, isn't there? That's just acoustic.
Yes, blues, punk is all in there.
Ballads. So, I think Use Your Illusion is I don't think it has the best of Guns N' Roses on. You might disagree, because I think the best of Guns N' Roses,
Appetite for Destruction,
Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Night Train, Paradise
I
City.
think Use Your Illusion, see?
Isn't it? But that shows the consistency of Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
But they didn't release many albums, did they? After Use Your Illusion.
No. After that they did the Spaghetti Incident,
which was a covers album.
Yes, and which for some people is their worst album.
Yeah.
And it's not up to the standards of the previous one for sure.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. People criticized him a lot about that. And then after that is when Slash left the band and Duff and all.
Yeah, so that's when everyone...
and as I said to you, it becomes a business. One thing I said to you on the way here was, is this thing I believe Axl could have done, which is after Slash and Duff left the band, if Axl had done the other album, Chinese Democracy and the tours and all this stuff, under the name Axl Rose, he would take a lot less criticism from people. It could be his solo career. He could play all the Guns N' Roses songs on tour and still be, he's the guy from Guns N' Roses. His name is as famous as the band.
That's true.
But I think he wanted to make a statement, like, even if the Slash is not here, this is my band. I started as saying, this is my baby.
Well, so after the success of Use Your Illusion, the band toured for quite a while. I mean, why wouldn't you? You've got enough material there to tour the world. Then in 1995, that's when the band kind of started splitting, all the big members. Slash went and did Slash's Snake Pit, but that was with Axl as well. I think it was. No, that wasn't. Okay, so Slash's Snake Pit is on his own. But then what else do we have? Slash and Duff and Matt Sorum did Velvet Revolver, which is another great band. Yeah, really good band.
But the guy from Stone Temple Pilots.
Yes, on the singer. Scott something, isn't he? Scott Weiland, I think. But yeah, interesting that the others saw that for the moment Guns N' Roses needed a break.
Yeah.
Axl didn't, and like Felipe just said, Axl could so easily have gone on and said, "Here's my new album, by Axl Rose."
No, he said, "No, that's Guns N' Roses. I want to keep the brand. I want to do it." That was his attitude.
Maybe he thinks he is the brand.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure he does, but you got to think Slash is the brand too. The hat, the curly hair, and the shades. That's as much Guns N' Roses as Axl, man.
Yeah, and for me, it shows how important the instrument is in a rock and roll concert. Yeah. If you have a rock band instead of a pop band, people care about who is the guitar player, who's the drummer, who's the bass player. Yeah. And so I think it's remarkable how Slash, Duff, and even Dizzy Reed and Gilby Clarke, who joined them for a short period of time, how those guys were important to the image of the band and to the rock and rollness of it all. So I think the thing about the music, the instrumentation of a band, and this for me, this is how I want to sum up Guns N' Roses. I'll ask you afterwards. For me, Guns N' Roses have ordinary / normal, not slash, excuse the pun, a forward slash that is, an ordinary and normal songwriting style. I don't think their songs, although you've got great songs like November Rain and Sweet Child of Mine, I don't think their songs are anything phenomenal. That could be Laz Unleashed.
No, because they are wicked songs. Like this isn't a Laz Unleashed. This isn't saying Guns N' Roses are bad. Yeah, you're right though. Second part, Laz Unleashed 2. No, they're not. Maybe I need to change my words. They are very good songs, but I think other bands could have written them as well. But for me, what makes Guns N' Roses is how good each member was at their instrument.
Interesting.
But I don't mean that in terms of virtuosisticness, which for anyone, virtuoso means a very, if you're a virtuoso in the violin, you are one of the top 1% of violin players. It means to be a virtuoso is to be a stunning player. So I don't mean that in that sense. For example, would you switch Jimmy Page and Slash? No, you wouldn't. Would you take Duff McKagan over John Paul Jones? No, you wouldn't. So I don't mean that they're the best at their instruments, but the jobs they do on their instruments together as a band. Izzy Stradlin is one of the most fantastic rhythm guitar players in rock and roll.
And it doesn't get that much
solo time. Also, but he doesn't solo either. Why? Because Slash is the guitar player. You were saying yesterday something about Slash purely being in the band for solos.
That's his job in the band. It's not songwriting. It's not. It's like coming up with riffs and solos. That's what he does.
So this is what I'm saying.
So well.
Each member of the band has their part to play, and although Slash will play rhythm guitar when he's not soloing, he is there for the solo. The moment of the song, right, is solo time. Could it be a bass solo? No. Could it be a vocal solo? No. Why? Because the only member of that band who's there to solo is Slash. You know you're going to get a kick-ass solo when you listen to it.
What I would say about them is, I think Guns N' Roses took the rock and roll attitude to another level. Not saying that is a good thing. And Slash took guitar solos to another level. In terms of making the guitar so relevant in the early 90s.
And,
again, really important.
He was surrounded by pop music with no solos, electronic music full of synths. He arguably, you could say, Slash repopularized the rock guitar solo.
He played with Michael Jackson. Think about that.
So
it's like he made the guitar, a really, really, how can I put it? I don't know, put the guitar in the spotlight again. Pretty much. Exactly.
Anyway, right, we'll take another moment to do and introduce another segment of this episode. So here is this episode's segment of Feed the Drummer. Right, well, here we are for Feed the Drummer. I'm just going to go and get the food for Felipe.
It's always my favourite part, that.
This one won't be.
Why?
You'll see.
Are you going to bring me some spaghetti? Are we going to do this spaghetti incident?
I could have done.
That would be an easy one.
Right, so for our visual viewers, here is the food.
Right. What is the food?
Well, have a look at this. So apples. It is but I want you to know that this apple, this slice of apple has salt, pepper, cinnamon, onion granules and garlic.
I don't want to try that.
No, why?
It sounds like a really weird combination.
Okay, well, the thing you've got to guess is a Guns N' Roses song.
Is it?
I'm not, bro.
I'll try this. I'll try this.
Don't do it. No, don't. I won't let you do it. He's gonna have a.
Is that Guns N' Roses song?
Well, do you want to eat that?
No.
Why not?
I don't know.
No.
I don't have that appetite.
He's got. That would have worked if you eat this piece of apple covered in pepper, salt, cinnamon, turmeric. Then it would be an appetite for destruction. But that, unfortunately, is not what I'm going for.
You're going for a song.
It's a Guns N' Roses song.
God.
Do you want to eat that piece?
No.
Why not?
It just looks weird.
Tell me when you're ready for the answer.
Let me guess.
If you ate that, what would you say?
I would say it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, but why? Look, I've gone to the effort. Think about the specifics. Look at the plate.
God,
I'm going to hold it up for the viewers.
I can't tell what you mean with that.
If you ate that, you'd say, "Oh, that's a bad apple."
Oh God, that was a bit obvious, but a bad apple.
There you go, the dirty bad apple covered. But anyway,
Let me eat some of
the other.
Ones.
Yeah, there you go. So the other ones are lovely. Just avoid that one. All right, that's going to taste like shit. Okay. Anyway, so So I think we're doing well. We'll wrap it up soon. One thing we have to talk about though is the most expensive album in rock music history. Let's talk Chinese Democracy.
Man.
You eat. You enjoy the apple. I'll talk about it.
How long did that take?
So the production...
Give us the numbers.
The production for Chinese Democracy started in 1994. And they used 4 different producers and brace yourselves, listeners, all right? Because this album has cost $13 million to create, and it came out in 2008. So 14 years in the making. That's a long time. I mean, we were a bit upset, all of us, me, Jack and Felipe, that our new album has taken over a year to do because we wanted to get it done in 6 months. But 14 years.
Jeez.
Just imagine him. Maybe he does what Jack does and just keeps writing new songs.
I don't think it's a bad album. I think what happened there, again, maybe that's the problem when you have just one guy in charge.
Yeah.
You know, so if Axl wasn't happy with the musician, he would replace the musician. Or wasn't happy with the mixing engineer, he would replace him, change the studio, write the song again, re-record the vocals, and it never ends.
14 years, man, that's a lot.
One thing, yeah.
I can understand what you've said over 2 or 3 years, but 14.
But the problem is, I think in art in general, you never finish a project. You abort the mission.
Yeah.
At some point, say, okay, that's it.
Enough is enough.
Let's release. That's why it's called a release. It's just like, all right, there you go. I'm releasing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to let it go because I can't finish. It never ends. But that's the thing. When you have no one to tell the guy, come on, man, that's enough.
Yeah.
And so he kept going for ages. The problem about that, I read a review at the time. It was like, imagine someone tells you, I'm going to tell you the funniest joke ever. I say, all right, can you tell me? No, I'm going to make you wait. And 14 years later, they come to you and tell the joke. And I think, well, it's not that funny, is it?
Yeah. So, the wait, yeah.
So the thing is, it is a good rock album. I think it is a good rock album.
Do you have a favourite song on it? Is there one that you'd recommend?
No. The title track is good. It's in general, I mean, it's not specific about a song or another. It's well produced.
Yeah.
I think his vocals are good. But then it's like, yeah. I mean, for waiting for that long, I expected an epic album.
Yeah.
It sold really well, of course. Guns N' Roses, you know.
Well, Guns N' Roses, but it's just him, isn't it?
Okay.
Oh, and I'm going to do it again because it's relevant. Do that one, please.
All right. So we now have another segment of the show. Laz Shorts.
Okay, here we are with another Laz Shorts where I say something really short. Chinese Democracy is not a Guns N' Roses album. There you have it.
All right.
The whole point of us doing this is when I did the editing on the first time I did Laz Shorts. It might have been on the Queen episode.
Yeah.
I made sure that the music, the jingle for Laz Shorts was longer than what Laz Shorts is, just to take the piss. But no, seriously. Again, this could be Laz Unleashed Part 3 actually, but it's. How can you put the name of Guns N' Roses on something where Slash isn't on it?
Yeah.
Or Duff.
Yeah.
Or
Where's the solo? Where's the solo?
Where's the solos? Yeah. If you listen to an album knowing that any guitar solo you hear is not Slash, again, that to me is not Guns N' Roses. It is what it is.
That's what loads of people thought at the time. That's why loads of people are happy with their reunion for, you know.
Well, that's a great.
Current tour.
Yeah, that's a really good way to move on because they started that they renewed their interest in playing with each other because they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012 and they played together, I believe. And then 4 years later, 2016, the original members plus, but I mean original with Steve. Oh no, so there was a drummer before Steven Adler.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they did have like another lineup, but I don't know who the guy is.
Okay, all right. Well, the classic lineup, Axl, Slash, Duff, Izzy and Steven all went on tour in 2016 and they're still touring
after
now.
All those court cases. It's amazing how people can get together for a bit of money.
But this is actually the good result. Remember what we said about the Creedence? It was such a shame that the court cases and the tribunals and the suing and the rights of the songs, it blew Creedence up. It absolutely fucked them up. But Guns N' Roses, I mean, they've had a longer time to reflect than Creedence. You know, it was 95 that Slash did his thing and sort of broke off, and then was it 2012? So 17 years later,
the
things had settled. They thought they could bring the band back out again, and they did. And they're touring now, and they're in London next year. I don't think I'm going to go because I don't know them enough, but apparently that they are killing it. Their live shows are meant to be really good. But again, great musicians, not just guys who have picked up an instrument and said, "Oh, let's write some music." They are a great band.
Committed to their music, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I totally recommend Guns N' Roses for those of you who happen to be from another world and don't know about Guns N' Roses.
Do you have a couple of favorite songs?
Estranged is my favorite. Like
you said that already.
Because,
Do you have another one?
Because
just
like
for the playlist.
It's so hard to pick one. Let me think.
No,
let me think. No, I'm going to give you a few songs.
You have a thing. Believe. I'm just going to talk quickly about the Guns N' Roses legacy. I just got a few points here. They have influenced so many bands.
Yeah.
It's just some bands who I know have openly said Guns N' Roses influenced us. Avenged Sevenfold, Fall Out Boy, Black Label Society, Nickelback, Bullet for My Valentine, The Strokes, Manic Street Preachers. So we're now leaving metal and rock and going into pop rock, indie rock. They did so much. As Felipe said, 100 million records sold worldwide. 100 million. That's not overnight success. That is a band who has worked to get where they are. And again, I mentioned this before, a band full of musicians who rank within their field. Some think Slash is the greatest guitarist ever.
Yeah.
Some think Axl has a case of being one of the best rock vocalists.
Yeah.
Duff as a bass player is well respected. Yeah. Izzy as a guitar player. Matt Sorum as a drummer.
Yeah. So,
as we've mentioned this before in this episode, all the musicians are great at their instruments as well. The modern influences of, too. Sweet Child of Mine is the most viewed video of a 1980s music vid. Oh, wow. So any music video that was released between 1980 and 1990, Sweet Child of Mine has the highest views.
Well, and as said, it's all about the music, isn't it? The video is so simple. There's nothing special to it. It's just them playing.
Yeah. One other little last fact is that they only ever toured 8 times. But the tours lasted 3 years.
All right.
But...
so that is...
Yeah.
Oh, you're cheating.
That was a clickbait. That's a clickbait title. Look, Guns N' Roses only toured 8 times. Click to find out how. Okay, the tours lasted 3 years.
Yeah. All right.
eight tours times 3 years is a lot of years.
It is.
Sorry for the clickbait.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're gonna leave a playlist, isn't it?
Did you think about your 2 or 3 songs?
Well, yeah, I did think 2 or 3 songs. I think I'm going to say more than that because
do it. These will all be in the playlist,
I love
guys.
Night Train. It's a fantastic song with you.
I spoke over you. What was the first
Night
song?
Train.
Night Train. Yeah.
Great song that Slash still plays it in his solo career. I saw him playing it live twice. I think Patience is amazing because, as I said, it's that soft ballad that has nothing to do with the other songs and shows how can they write a pop song. Oh man, it's so hard. I mean, You Could Be Mine is something I need to mention because you got to watch the video if you haven't seen it. Okay. Because there's Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator in it.
Brilliant.
And that in itself,
that's enough reason.
And it's like a drum intro, really loud guitars, and Axl shouting and all that stuff. So it is the one you wanna hear. Fantastic song. It's So Easy is another one I like.
I think Welcome to the Jungle is a great song. I like the hits basically, and I'm the casual Guns N' Roses fan. But again, the casual fan means as much as a dedicated fan.
Well, I think
because they buy tickets to see the shows.
Let's say the problem is the hits are, in my opinion, way better than the. There's a huge contrast between their hits and the fillers in the album. Some songs you listen to them, okay, it's well played. I like the song, but it's not. Let's be honest, they're not as good as the hits. Yeah. But the hits, I mean, November Rain, you can't top that, can you? It's like, what a song.
Yeah. Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City is great as well. I love Civil War, it's a lovely song, and there's a song called Yesterdays, which I think is a couple of tracks after Civil War. What a band.
Let's put all of those songs in the playlist for people who are not familiar with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are fans and know more than we know about it, let us know what's your favourite song. Let us know what we should know about Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, well, we've had, over the last few episodes, we've had people message us and email us and get us on our social media and just tell us little facts about things. Try to remember what it was. So we did Led Zeppelin 2, that was episode 3, and one of our listeners got in touch and said, did you know What Is and What Should Never Be was actually about Robert Plant's secret affair or passion for his sister-in-law? So that's something we didn't know. So please, by all means, get in touch. Let us know any facts or stuff that we missed out or that you think would be interesting, and we can add them to our social media pages as little extras. So
yeah, we're doing this to learn. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Any final thoughts on Guns N' Roses?
I think they're mandatory. If you're into rock and roll, even if you don't like them, listen to one album, start to finish. I think they. I'm glad they existed to keep rock and roll alive. That's my final.
One album, start to finish. Use Your Illusion. That's 6 hours.
No,
the
second one.
My listening list. Listen to Appetite for Destruction, Use Your Illusion 1, and Use Your Illusion 2, and that for me, you have a summary of what Guns N' Roses is.
Even if they haven't done anything other than those 3 albums, they would still be essentially rock and roll.
My summary of Guns N' Roses, I said it before earlier in this episode, and it's just the fact that I think they are a bunch of incredibly talented musicians who made the songs that they wrote better because of their talent. Again, earlier on, it sounded like I was slating their songs, which I didn't mean. Perhaps I phrased it wrongly. The songs are great.
Don't apologise, Laz.
No,
that's what we expect from you.
The controversial shit. Yeah. The songwriting is good. I wouldn't say the songwriting is incredible, but as individual musicians who have come together to execute a song, they all sound brilliant, and the hits sound incredible. They are ultimately a hits band, I think.
Yeah.
If we were to categorize them like that, you don't go and say, "Oh, listen to the whole of this album." You say, although we just did, we just contradicting ourselves. I'm contradicting myself.
No, I would listen to the albums.
The albums are worth a listen for sure, but listen, you all know "Sweet Child of Mine." You all know "Welcome to the Jungle."
And they're a great live band.
True.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool.
Perfect.
I think that's it for today.
That sums it up nicely. That was a good chat, actually. I thought, I really enjoyed it. Because I'm not a Guns N' Roses fan, but it's great when we do research for the shows, learning about them. And
that's what we do. I mean, the idea of the show is for us as well to learn and try to rediscover our passion for some bands and for rock music.
Yeah.
And try to understand why rock is still relevant, why people need music in their lives, and that's the purpose of the show.
Exactly.
So we're here to have fun, and I hope you guys are having fun. So.
Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. We have been the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. Please follow us on our social media and stay in touch, because we post stuff relevant to the episodes, and we do segments on our YouTube channel and everything. So we are at Long Live RNR Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and you can search the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast on YouTube and Facebook to follow us on our socials. Apple and iTunes listeners, we could really do with your help. We need you, if you're enjoying the show, which we hope you are, to review us on the podcasts app, because due to all the algorithms and how internet computer shit works, if we get more reviews, we move higher up the listings. So if someone searches rock in the podcasts, at the moment we'll be quite low because we've only got 5 reviews. If we get that up to 10 or 15 reviews, we move up the charts. And if someone searches rock, we're closer to the top, so we'd be seen more. So Apple users, if you would be so kind as to review us on the podcasts app, we would hugely appreciate it. But other than that, I think we're done here. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for being with us, and keep on rocking, everyone.
And as usual, guys, take care and long live rock and roll.